From PRX, it's... This week, writer Scaachi Koul.
I mean, I was excited to grow up and win a fight. I had never won a fight before. I was the youngest in my family. So I was fighting, but I lost every single one. And then I got older and I was like, sweet, I'm gonna kill a man.
Poet and musician Emma Ruth Rundle.
I was reading too much Hemingway, and it all started with that Ken Burns documentary. And I was lonely, and, I was like, this guy would be a great boyfriend for me.
And our fabulous house band. I'm your announcer, Elena Passarello, and now, the host of Livewire, Luke Burbank.
Thank you so much, Elena Passarello. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to Livewire from all across the country. We have a really fun and kind of varied show for you this week, which we like to do. First, though, of course, before we get to that, we've got to kick things off like we always like to, with the best news we heard all week. This, of course, is our little reminder that there is good news happening out there in the world. It just takes some digging sometimes, but we do that for you, and we pass it along. Elena, what is the best news you heard all week?
Well, you're going to have to do a little bit of digging in this story itself to find the good news, because we're going to start with a fact that is anything but fun.
Uh-oh.
Did you know, Luke Burbank, that according to NPR, snakes kill tens of thousands of people a year? Still, and 10 times that are severely injured by venomous snakes, like paralysis, loss of limbs, blood clots. It's still very much a human issue.
I'm very afraid of a snake biting me, but I assume that was one of those things that, they would say, you're more likely to get hit by lightning than for a snake to bite you. I would assume that my fear was overblown, but it sounds like it's the exact right amount of blown.
Well, I mean, where you live, I know where you live. That's not a threat. I just know where you live. I don't think there are a lot of venomous snakes. But in other parts of the world, like developing countries or the tropics, it's definitely more of an issue. But so wouldn't it be nice if there was some kind of an antidote, like a vaccine? But so there's a problem with that dream, and that's that you need to have some materials. You need to have some chemicals that this is the sciencey part, that compute with humans and compute with a human immunoresponse. And really the only way to get those chemicals is to get them from a body that has survived a snake bite.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So the CEO of Centevac said his team was looking for, quote, a clumsy snake researcher. Someone who fooled me once, shame on the snake, fooled me twice, drive me to the ER.
Yeah.
But turns out that there is a lifelong snake enthusiast in Wisconsin named Tim Freed. And he's always loved snakes, and he's been letting snakes bite him for 24 years. Since 2001, because he sort of had a similar dream. He could kind of combine his love of venomous snakes and his interest in them as a species with helping the better good of the human population.
So just being a test case, this thing that no other person would probably sign up for.
He has been bitten by dozens upon dozens upon dozens of snakes. We're talking black mambas. We're talking 2 cobras that sent him to the ER. We're talking water snakes. We're talking snakes with names that I can't even pronounce. And these two forces, this super body and this company, have been working together. And a study was just published in Cell magazine that says they are getting closer to actually having this kind of universal remote snake bite cure, thanks to the sacrifices of Tim Freed and the work of modern science, which is pretty cool, right?
Wow. Well, that is incredible. Shout out to Tim and all the people doing that research for getting ever closer to this universal vaccine. I don't know if you are a marathoner or a half marathoner or a fun runner, Elena.
No.
Have you been out
The
there?
answer is
How
no.
about this? Have you attended events where there are people of all genders, and you've noted that the line for the women's restroom is longer than for the men's restroom, and that's
Ani DeFranco concert. Yeah.
It's particularly noticeable if you've ever been to a race, because right before you're about to go on a marathon or a half marathon or whatever it might be, sometimes you got a little bit of nervous energy. You feel like you've got to go. Well, there is a company in the UK called Pequel, and their whole thing is to build these urinals that are specifically designed and just for female runners, and that this means that first of all, the way it's designed is much faster for someone with that physical body, just the interior of this urinal, and the fact that it's just dedicated to women runners means that they have a place they can go. They don't have to wait in some interminable line before the race. So these Pequel urinals have been a big hit, right? But now they're taking it to another level. They are working with some folks over in the UK for this upcoming London Marathon to take all of the urine that goes through those Pequel urinals and actually use it to fertilize wheat growth. And they think that the 1,000 liters of urine that they're going to harvest from this can grow, wait for it, Elena, 200 loaves of bread. Now, if they were able to harvest the urine from all like 5,800 people who finished the London Marathon on a typical year, that would be 3,142 loaves of bread.
Oh, my God.
Now, listen, I know that this I can hear in your voice the suspicion, Elena. This is maybe not bread that sounds particularly appetizing to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that I would not like to eat.
But I guess it's the principle of the matter, right? It's this idea that we can lower our sort of footprint in a lot of different areas, and that, by the way, there were many people cited in this article who seem really ready to try this bread out when it's all done. They're very excited about it. I thought I would present you maybe the most British sentence I've ever seen. A runner who's going to be participating in the London Marathon named Susan Farrell said, quote, "It's brilliant to think that the nervous wheeze of thousands of women are helping a good cause."
That is very British.
Anyway, people having a more convenient way to relieve themselves and some good coming from it at the London Marathon. That is the best news I heard all week. All right, our first guest is a senior writer at Slate and the co-host of the hit podcast Scamfluencers. Her first book was the bestseller, One Day We'll All Be Dead, and None of This Will Matter, which feels somehow, sadly, even more relevant as a title here in this year than it was back when it was written. That book covered, among other things, her marriage. Now, her latest book of essays, which is called Sucker Punch, covers, you guessed it, the end of that marriage. And also what it's like to reconstitute yourself after, like, an essential fact about your life has changed forever. Scaachi Koul joined us at the Alberta Rose Theater in Portland, Oregon, to talk about all of this. Take a listen.
Hi. Oh my
Hi.
God. I haven't been to Portland in 8 years. It's so nice to be back.
Welcome back.
Portland.
It's nice to have you here.
I love Portland. I love Portland audience. This is the only city where I can get this many white people to listen to me at once. So I love being here.
It's one of our core competencies here in Portland is white people showing up for things.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Here's what I'm curious about. Your childhood in Calgary, what was your experience? Were you a happy kid? Were you anxious? Like, kind of what was the scene for you growing up?
I grew up in a really white area with loud, argumentative South Asian parents. So I learned really fast that temperament does not take outside of my family dynamic. But I was raised by lunatics, proudly.
But you write in the book that, like, your family was having a lot of pretty loud arguments, but that was also just how you communicated. It didn't mean what other people thought it meant.
Yeah, I think, and I think this is somewhat cultural. There are differences in how certain white people fight and how all brown people fight. So when we argue, like, that's just like tea. Like, that's just what we're having a conversation. We're having coffee. We're having a little snack. Like, it's nothing. So rarely in my family did fights have any consequences for anybody. That was just how we communicated. And so then when I grew up and I married a white guy, then I was like, oh, he's not good at this. And I'm so good at it.
Right.
And I realized pretty fast that wasn't going to work.
Right. Like, that was a sort of a muscle that you had been exercising.
Since in utero.
Right.
Listening to my mother scream at anybody, I was like, this is music.
Yeah, I think you write in the book that, like, these things that you develop thinking they're going to really be great in adulthood and be really useful turn out to really not be that helpful.
I mean, I was excited to like grow up and win a fight. I had never won a fight before. I was the youngest in my family. So like I was fighting, but I lost every single one. And then I got older and I was like, sweet, I'm gonna kill a man. It's tough on a marriage when you want to destroy the other person, I find. He's fine, first of all. Everybody relax.
You write, I think, sort of jokingly, but not, that your dad is a menace to society.
That's 100% accurate.
But a close menace.
Do you know how many times he's had his credit card compromised this month? He keeps buying fake furniture from Facebook. And then calling me and being like, I saw these 2 armchairs, they were $70. 2 armchairs for $70?
On the TikTok shop.
If he finds out what TikTok is, I'm going to kill myself. Like, I don't have it in me to manage that. I'm white knuckling it with the iPhone. That's bad enough.
Right. Now, what's your mom's deal exactly? What's like their dynamic, and sort of, would you go to one or the other as a kid if you needed, I don't know, sort
anything?
of friendship, protection?
Yeah, we went to mom for everything.
Okay.
Our mom did everything. She cooked, she cleaned, she was the person you talked to if you had a problem. She was the person you cried to. She's still around. I don't know why I'm talking about her like she's dead. She's very much alive. I have received several text messages from her today. But my dad was just like comedic relief, I would say, and that was also the dynamic that I understood. That's how families worked, right? Mm-hmm. Women managed everything; they did all of the real work, and then men would swoop in and be like, "Do you want to go to the mall?" And I wanted to go to the mall.
I want to talk after the break about the very miracle of your existence. The fact that you, in the book, right? You
Jesus.
probably shouldn't even be here, right? How's that for a forward promotion?
Wow.
It's Livewire Radio. We're talking to Scaachi Koul about her new book. It's Sucker Punch. We'll be back with much more Livewire in just a moment. Welcome back to Livewire from PRX. I'm Luke Burbank. We are at the Alberta Rose Theater in Portland, Oregon this week. We're talking to Scaachi Koul about her new book, Sucker Punch. You write in the book that your mother will not admit to this, but in fact, it's fairly miraculous that you're here because your mother was going in to the doctor for one sort of thing and found out that a different sort of thing was going on.
This is my favorite story. This is a testament to my fortitude, I think. Mm-hmm. My mom got pregnant with me pretty late. She had a bunch of miscarriages after my brother. My brother's 12 years older than me. My brother was born in India, so they emigrated, to Canada in the late 70s and the early 80s. So my parents tried to have another kid, and they couldn't do it. But she went to the doctor. She was supposed to get a hysterectomy, and they did her checkup, and they're like, well, we can't do the surgery unless you want us to terminate.
So they canceled the hysterectomy because there was a child in there, you.
She'd already had one fallopian tube removed.
Wow.
So my father, disgusting, somehow managed to get one by, which fills me with a wretitude I can't even approach. But I really think it is about me, not about him.
I believe they call that high motility.
I don't need to know that.
It's the medical term.
I I don't need that information. Good for you.
But in the movie version, Scaachi, in the movie version of your life, every day is now a gift.
Oh, shut up.
Because
no, it's not. Like, what do you mean?
Because you weren't even supposed to be here, and now it's just like all...
You're right. I had such a close call to not be around for this. I can't believe I missed it. I could have not been alive for this phase of history. That would have been fine. I wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
This is all in hindsight now.
Yeah, it's a good point, actually. You mentioned something in passing in the book that I don't think is further unpacked, but you talked about not liking the moon.
I don't like the moon.
What is your problem with the
I
moon?
think the moon is always, it impact, first of all, it's so bossy. I don't like that it tells me what's going to happen to the ocean. I think it does something to my period. I don't know what. I don't like the moon. There's something onerous and ominous about it. And when it's full, I don't like looking at it. And I think it gets upset. And that's when things go wrong.
Huh. That is an interesting theory.
You can see why the publisher was like, let's not unpack that.
And you're like,
just say it and then go.
But you're like, I'm fighting for it, at least to get a mention.
Yeah.
Speaking of your writing and your style of writing, one of the things that I thought was really interesting in this book is talking about the kind of journalism that you've done and the kind of memoir you've written in the past, where we are at a moment where a lot of writers, their life is like also their content.
Yeah.
And as you write in the book, that can become complicated when your life takes unexpected turns.
Yeah.
Did you realize at some point, kind of earlier in your career, when you're writing a lot of personal essays and a lot of things through your perspective, that you were like, okay, I'm pretty much locking in on this career path where I am myself a product in a way?
Yeah, no, I didn't think about it. I was 22. I was just happy to pay my rent. And at the time, I'm 34 now, so 10, 12 years ago at the time, that was all digital media was producing. They were so intent on getting young women to engage in confessional work. And some of us wanted to do it. I wanted to do it. That was my choice. And I wrote this whole book about my life and what I thought my life was and the theory I had on my own existence. And then the book came out, and a couple of years after that, I realized everything that I thought I knew about my marriage, about myself, about my sense of self, about my family was false. And they were these stories I had told myself because they were safe. It was safe to be in those stories that my husband loved me and that my family was rigid. There was safety in that. Even though the rigidity was frustrating to me, it still felt safer to accept, well, I have to stay in this marriage because my parents will never get their heads around the divorce. I'm the only divorced person in my family ever.
Wow.
So, my grandmother got married when she was 14. She was arranged. My mom got married at 24. She was arranged, but with consent. I am 34. It is a hard-won battle to die alone in my apartment at this age. I've earned it.
Yes.
But the bartender in the back clapping.
Yes.
Hey, buddy, I see you. You and me, white-knuckling it.
We pay him in free books at the end of the show.
You can have 2 sucker punches for that thumbs up. But I had these ideas, and they were so deeply entrenched, even though I couldn't identify that they were, and it took all of it dismantling, everything falling apart. I moved to the United States at the beginning of 2019. In 2020, the pandemic started. I was stuck here because I was waiting for my paperwork. While I was in the pandemic, I found out a bunch about my ex-husband that turned out to not be what I thought I knew. My marriage ended. I lost my job. My mom got cancer. Everybody's fine. I got a new job. My mom's in remission, and I'm divorced. It's pretty sick.
Yeah. Something that you say in the book, which as a person who has been divorced twice, so dare to dream, Scaachi.
I kind of feel like if you're going to do it twice, you should do it 40 times.
Yes.
It's either 1 or 100.
Yes.
I'm not
They call that the Elizabeth Taylor principle.
Literally. There's no point.
There's no more half steps. This comes as tough news to my girlfriend who is in the audience tonight. No, but here's what you said in the book is that getting divorced is really embarrassing.
Yeah.
And that's what we don't talk about.
Yeah.
It's just embarrassing to have to go around to the people who came to your wedding and all the people who, and in your case, you wrote an entire book about it, and then you have to walk that back.
Yeah.
It's hella embarrassing.
It's mortifying. Can you imagine? Okay, I'm going to throw this party about this ludicrous concept, this risk. I'm throwing a party about a bet. Can you come? Can you buy me a toaster for the bet, please? And all these people are going to show up and they're going to talk to you as if you are making the last choice of your life. There will never be a choice after this. That's how people talk about you when you get married.
Well, they feel like they have to, right?
They feel like they have to because no one wants to come to your wedding and be like, this will be good for now.
Yeah.
I think you guys are going to have a great 3 to 8 years.
Although, didn't your mom kind of do that?
When I called my parents to tell them I was leaving my ex-husband, I FaceTimed them. My dad picked up the phone. He's the least perceptive person in the world. He had no idea what was going on. He's like, "You're crying. Why?" And I was sobbing on the phone, and my mother was not in the room. She was in the kitchen. And she heard just whatever choke sob happened in my throat. And she yelled out, "Oh, are they getting a divorce?" She could have told me. I didn't know. I had no idea it was that bad. Everybody knew. I was the last person who knew my marriage was over. Everybody else had an idea. There was not one person I called to say, "Hey, I know you came to that really expensive 4-day wedding. Bad news." Every single person was like, "Oh, yeah." So what else is new?
Well, I don't want to be glib, but I was wondering if in the sort of worst of it for you with the divorce, did you have a thought, well, this will be something to write about?
It was the first thing I thought.
Okay. I kind of
think
figured.
it's really disingenuous when some people who make creative work and make public work, or they write, or they make whatever they do, and they're like, "Me? Attention for baby? Yeah, that's what you're here for. What do you mean?" Like, of course I was going to turn it into something. Then I would have nothing. I was going to be divorced and not at least have a couple of good butt jokes to sell for profit. Okay, well then why?
Yeah.
I should have something out of it, but it was my first thought. It was the only thing I carried out of my marriage. The only thing I brought out of it was the story of it. I did not take a dime. I took a weird bed that I don't think I have anymore, and the writing chair that I used to write my stories in. That's all I took. The only thing I had after my marriage ended was the story of how it ended. It was the only thing I was able to carry. I was not willing to relinquish that, even though it did feel like I was walking deeper into this door that spooks me, and it's weird to give up a lot of intimacy with strangers, but it's a deal I'm willing to make because it makes me feel less lonely. But I was not going to leave it there because I had gotten nothing already. I felt robbed.
When you leave and you say, I have this story, is there a question that's attached to it that starts you writing? Or is it just, I want to retell this story again and see what comes from the telling?
It's rage.
Huh.
I was so mad. I was so mad.
Is that why they're brass knuckles with a wedding ring embedded on the cover of the book?
I think it's a subtle metaphor.
I'm able to read.
I'm trying to figure out what my lawyer would like me to say about that.
Right. What surprised you about being divorced? Like, what were you not expecting about that version of your life?
I wasn't expecting how many women in particular would treat you like it's contagious. And I didn't expect to agree that, yeah, it is contagious.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you should be worried if you spend time with me.
You're patient zero.
I will get you divorced in 45 minutes. Like, I started to gain a reputation amongst my friends as a divorce doula. Every couple of months, old Scaachi Koul got a phone call from someone being like, "I think I hate my husband." I'm like, "I bet. Come here." Come here. Like, it is contagious. As soon as you start to see that there is a possibility to leave, to exit, to make a different choice, to blow your life up, and things will still be okay. You'll still go to the doctor and have your friends and build a life, and you'll be fine, but you can make another choice. As soon as other people see that you can do that, they don't like that. Because then they have to think about their own choices. I've lost a lot of friends because I just hate their husbands now. Like,
and you're done putting up with it.
Yeah, he sucks. Like, it was. I wish sometimes that I could go back to my delusion. It was safe there. I was really comfortable. I had a nice life, but it wasn't worth it. And once I could see it, it was impossible for me to return. And it has become pretty challenging for me to accommodate other people's delusions about their own lives as well.
So it's changed your personality overall, or
Yeah,
at least
I'm a tough hang. Like, I'm a tough hang. No one's denying it. I'm hard at a party. Like, I'm a rough first date. But, it's okay.
Yeah.
People invite me to go on the radio, so that's what I do.
Yeah, that's good. There you go. A message of hope from Scaachi Koul from her new book, Sucker Punch. Scaachi, thank you so much for coming on
Thanks for
Livewire.
having me.
That was the writer Scaachi Koul here on Livewire. Her latest book of essays, Sucker Punch, is available right now for you to read. Livewire is brought to you by Powell's Books, a Portland institution since 1971. Powell's offers a selection of new and used books in stores and online at powells.com. This here is Livewire. I'm Luke Burbank, along with Elena Passarello. Each week we like to ask the Livewire audience a question. This week inspired by Scaachi Koul's new book, Sucker Punch, and the kind of topic of like a relationship sort of falling apart. We thought we would ask the audience, what question, Elena?
We want you to tell us about a red flag that you have seen in someone else's relationship. So you don't have to divulge your own red flag issues. You get to point outward to someone else.
Landed on a proxy case somewhere that you can pretend is not your life. No, we actually did talk to some of our real audience members at a Livewire taping recently. Here's what we heard from Kelsey talking about a red flag that Kelsey had observed in a relationship.
Whenever somebody says that they made their partner do something, so like I made them change their clothes or I made them go get me XYZ.
So that was a red flag that Kelsey has observed. This idea of trying to force somebody to do something different than they would normally, somebody who is, let's say, your partner.
Right, the whole I can change him sort of mentality.
Yes. I have responded poorly to that historically in my relationships. Now, ironically, the other people really had a point. Like, I had a lot, and I still do have a lot that I should change. It's not even that they were wrong. It's that usually it's difficult if you're the person who is being encouraged in the direction of change to fully embrace that.
You're a cat. Cats can't be made to do things. They just have to be convinced that they've come up with some really great ideas that they receive a lot of treats for. And then all of a sudden their behavior changes.
Is this why some of my exes had to put tin foil on a lot of surfaces that I wasn't supposed to jump on? All right. Here's another red flag that Laura, who attended our live show, has observed.
If somebody is dating somebody who's like never single, like they're just a serial dater, and it's a sign that they can't be alone, and they might have codependency issues, that's a red flag.
Strike two. I think I've been single for 20 minutes of my adult life.
Really?
Yeah, it's weird though, because this was not supposed to turn into a therapy session, but
Yeah, this is interesting where we're going with this.
Whenever you have these sort of, I don't know, behavioral traits or things that like, if you looked at it from 30,000 feet, you might say, well, that's something to really consider. You don't realize when you're doing it that you're doing it. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I mean, if a good one comes along and it's only been 20 minutes, you got to go. That's what I would think.
That's I guess been my approach. I mean, currently it's working out. I'm very happy about that. Okay, listen.
Yes.
We have a final entrant here. It's Scott, who was at a show recently and was talking about red flags.
If you're having more fun with their partner than they are, that's a red flag.
I mean, that is an issue. If you're hanging out as a group and it feels like that person is having more fun interacting with you than they are with the person that they came with.
I call that the everybody loves Raymond factor.
Okay.
I feel like everyone in that TV show had no interest in being with anyone else except for the tall, sweet brother. Like they all just seemed really not interested. They were so mad at each other all the time.
I think that might be why I never got into that show because, I was like, I'm living this in my own marriage. Why am I watching it on television? Why am I spending this one wild life to see Ray Romano have a relationship that doesn't seem to be working out?
This has been a really a fruitful audience card situation, Luke.
I do want to say thank you to the brave souls who responded to our audience question. We really do appreciate it. This is Livewire. Our next guest is a multidisciplinary artist, poet, and musician who has a brand new debut poetry collection out. It's called the Bella Vista. It's described as a concept album, an addiction memoir, a family tree, and a love letter, kind of all at once. Alongside all of that hard-hitting stuff, she's also released music that blends folk and ambient noise and metal into something the New York Times calls patiently haunting, with NPR warning that her songs will pierce your chest and keep on going. You know, sometimes art is so good that you need medical attention afterwards. And sorry, we don't make the rules. We're just reporting what we were seeing here. Emma Ruth Rundle joined us at the Alberta Rose Theater in Portland, Oregon. Take a listen to this.
Hello.
Welcome to the show, Emma.
Thanks for having me.
Were you always writing poetry, but maybe mostly funneling it towards your music?
I was not. I became interested in poetry. The last full-length album I put out was called Engine of Hell, and I wanted to do something very stripped back with no effects and not a lot of instrumentation. It was going to be laid bare, and the lyrics would feature heavily for that reason. So I thought I need to do some studying. Who can I turn to? And I started getting really invested in poetry then, so in 2019, 2020, and then I kept pulling things back further and further until there was no music at all, and I was just writing poems.
And then if you're writing poetry that isn't going to have music, because I mean, I think a lot of us think of the lyrics to a song as being a form of poetry, but when you're writing it and there's not going to be any music accompanying it, are you coming at it differently? Does it feel different to create it?
Yeah, we can't rely on musical cues to direct emotion, and there's a visual art form to poetry on the page, and reading it also, which I don't think I really fully realized that would be something I would end up doing when I started writing this. So it is, they're cousins, I think, but they are very much their own.
You were writing this book of poetry on the road while you were touring your music. What was like the schedule like? Would you go back to the hotel and like get out your notepad, or how did it go?
Well, the notepad is sort of just, it's omnipresent, you know.
Attached at the hip?
Yeah, and in the routine of traveling and performing for months at a time, it gives you this interesting perspective, being in motion. And so working on poetry, someone once said to me, is a very slow art. So it's like I could chip away at the lines in a waiting room, waiting backstage after a show, in a van. And another reason for it is that it's very inconvenient to try to be working on a song on an airplane. I don't think, you know, pulling out my guitar and singing.
That'll get the attention of a sky marshal.
Yeah. So it was a way to stay active in my creative practice also while traveling.
Yeah. Well, can we hear a poem from the book?
Sure.
Can you also describe for the radio audience what the process is here? Because it looks, this is a kind of a multimedia presentation, I guess.
Yeah, so the book did come with this album, which is improvised piano music, and it's inspired by Harold Budd's album of the same name, the Bella Vista. And so I brought my record player from home. Even though music is my life, I just carry this pretty cheap record player around, and I'm gonna put the music on while I read the poem.
Cool. Okay, great. And what is the name of the poem that we're going to hear?
Well, I'll read The Star Maker for you first.
Great.
The Star Maker. Sweet boy, unsure man, line of a man, the most hidden being, you've not yet been discovered, not even unto yourself. What thoughts are you trying to keep out when you build your pillow fortress and lord in the citadel of sleeplessness? Whose little army will not let you rest? The Lord God? The Father God? The doings of men who've done and been done to them as children, as brothers, as sons? 3 generations of war? An old song you once loved and are now tortured by, drowning the unsavory dreamer? Or the fear of wakening again into the faithless destroyer of worlds world in which we really live? I never want to waken. As lovers, only sometimes our eyes meet in the morning bed, and I well up because of your indescribables, the directness to your lineage of sorrows, and so short-lived a moment it is. You do not hold my gaze, but you will hold my hand. I am waiting at the gate. I am sitting at the edge of the water there, in case the poet does descend when the star maker is free and the moon is fed, in case you might make the crossing unburdened and without fear of me. I have stilled the morning chorus. I've warned the birds not to sing. I do not eat, but drink on silence and lacrimosa. I open my mouth to become the vessel of nothingness and cast the vacuum like a long-held note of shadow all around your tower. No creature here stirs, no creature here dares stir, that we may behold you, most rare one, my dweller on the threshold.
That's Emma Ruth Rundle reading from the Bella Vista here on Livewire. Do you remember the circumstances around writing that particular poem, or at least maybe the major sections of it? Like, what was going on for you?
Well, this poem, it's after Remedios Varo, who was a surrealist painter, and she had this painting that I sort of get fixated on images or films or songs, and they kind of guide my creative process. And in this picture, this painting, there's a tower up, and you can see it's sort of sections so that you can see inside, and there's a woman feeding a caged moon, a moon in a bird cage, spoonful of stardust. And we don't know how long this is going on, but the painting is called The Star Maker. And so I was heartbroken for a lot of the time I was writing this book, and you know, I don't know, for some reason that painting held significance for me.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, because reading the book, it's definitely, I get a sense of you in motion and also grieving. And, you know, I've read that this is a book also about addiction that you were dealing with. Do you feel comfortable talking about what that sort of looked like for you? And also, were you sober when you were writing these poems?
Yeah, I was. I'll have 5 years this year.
Hey, congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, the managing addiction, it's something that never ends, you know?
You were writing this looking back on a time when you weren't sober. And did you get, in the process, like insights into those parts of your life, like kind of like looking back, observing it from now a somewhat safe distance?
I think writing, art, music, it's always, for me, a great way to take experience outside of yourself, put it into something with form, and then you can examine it and kind of reintegrate it in a different way.
Yeah. We're talking to Emma Ruth Rundle about her new book, The Bella Vista, here on Livewire from PRX. I am a noted literalist when it comes to interpreting poetry and things. And I noticed, Emma, that you have two different poems in the book. One is I Read Too Much Hemingway, and then one is called Too Much Hemingway. Were you, in fact, reading too much Hemingway?
And how much is too much Hemingway?
And when do you know it's too much Hemingway?
Okay, well, yes, I was reading too much Hemingway, and it all started with that Ken Burns documentary.
Oh,
Sure, that'll do it.
And I was lonely, and, you know, I was like, I think this guy would be a great boyfriend for me.
Whoa, that's really interesting.
Well, he's not living, so, you know, we can't get too close.
2025 Hemingway.
Yeah, so
Right.
I just kind of went through a really intense Hemingway phase. I was into watching the Ken Burns. I was really into Ken Burns documentaries for a while, and then started reading the books, and then I thought it was kind of a funny title. You know, it was humorous, and then one thing I learned about writing poems or writing a collection is that when you have something generative and self-referential within the book, it helps to pull the whole thing together and feel cohesive. And so I tagged on the second one a bit later, yeah.
Can we hear another poem from the book?
Sure. We're going to hear the title track, The Bella Vista.
All right, this is Emma Ruth Rundle here on Livewire.
Rip up this book, my love. I wrote it for you, so that crumpled pages of refuse-worthy thinking might lift from the floor and bloom. Peony and chrysanthemum rightfully placed upon your shoulders. Words and thoughts aren't enough. They aren't even close to right. I wish I'd never known any language at all other than the giving of simple gifts. Thank you.
That was Emma Ruth Rundle, recorded live at the Alberta Rose Theater in Portland, Oregon. We're not done, though, hanging out with Emma Ruth Rundle just yet. After we take a quick break, she is going to be performing one of her songs for us, so do not go anywhere. Welcome back to Livewire Radio from PRX. I'm Luke Burbank here with Elena Passarello. Okay, it is once again time for one of my favorite parts of the show, and that is when we play a little station location identification examination. Here's how this works. I quiz Elena Passarello about a place in America, which also happens to be a place Livewire is on the radio, and Elena tries to guess the place that I am talking about. Here's hint number one. This town was the subject of the Middletown Studies sociological research was first conducted in the 1920s. The name Middletown was meant to suggest the average or typical American small city. Now, in fact, there are a lot of places in the U.S. named Middletown, but the researchers were interested in an idealized conceptual American type, and so they actually concealed the identity of this city by referring to it by Middletown. Sometime after the publication, the residents of this city began to guess that the research was about their own town, that the book was about them.
So it's a smart,
perfect town. It's also the birthplace of the comic strip Garfield by Jim Davis.
Ooh. Is it Madison, Wisconsin?
It starts with an M, and it's in the Midwest, but we're looking more Indiana. How about Go Eagles?
Oh, it's Muncie, Indiana.
That's right, it's Muncie. I was going to throw a little Dave Letterman in there, but I knew that would just be...
That's right,
That'd be too easy for you. Yes, it's Muncie, Indiana, where we're on WBST-FM Ball State.
Ball State, where they have the David Letterman School of Communications, and the cornerstone says, from David Letterman, dedicated to C students everywhere.
That's my kind of broadcaster. Shout out to everybody tuning in Indiana on WBST-FM. All right, before we hear a song from Emma Ruth Rundle, here's a little preview of next week's episode. We are going to be talking to writer, comedian, and podcaster extraordinaire Jamie Loftus. Jamie's latest podcast is called 16th Minute of Fame, and I love this podcast so much. It is like scientifically engineered for my synapses. What Jamie does is goes after these kind of bizarre main characters on the internet, people who just like came out of nowhere and then suddenly were being commented on. They were the center of the discourse. And what Jamie does is she says, well, what happened in the 16th minute? You know, of course, everyone gets their 15 minutes. I think Andy Warhol's credited with that. And so Jamie goes and finds them and interviews them and then kind of expands out, like opens the aperture on what this really meant about us as a society. Then we're going to hear comedy from our friend Hari Kondabalu. He has performed all over the world, and yet there is one place that he is forbidden from performing. And the person doing the forbidding, his mother. And then we're going to get some music from experimental, folk rock, Portland legends, Blitzen Trapper. 3 extremely good reasons to tune in to next week's episode of Livewire. Okay, let's get back to this week's musical guest, shall we? Now, before the break, we were talking to Emma Ruth Rundle, who was sharing some of her poetry with us and a little bit of the process of writing that poetry. But she's also a well-regarded musician and was nice enough to play us some of that music as well at the Alberta Rose Theater in Portland, Oregon. So here is some of that. Take a listen.
We were hoping to hear a song. Could we hear some of your music as well?
So the song I'm going to play is called Blooms of Oblivion, and it's from that record of very stripped down stuff that was heavy lyric. And yeah, it's a real uplifting number for you.
This is Emma Ruth Rundle on Livewire.
Judas, come close to me, vision visions. Tell me the story of how you swing like a nectarine, grayest of gardens, your tongue hanging free from your mouth. Down at the methadone clinic we waited, hoping to take home your cure. The cuddling cows, the crackle giant, you say that it's making you pure. Just like flowers for engine on something's diminished. There's a love like never known till you finish. 2, 6 and 5, but you rise, and enough are your blooms of oblivion. I love you. I love you. See you. Make a rhyme close to you, to deal your departure, to make sure you're nailed to the ground. And only earn the glamour of touching your traitors is all. Run away from you now, but I will stand over you to breathe in your vapor as pieces and parts they dissolve. Complete as a failure, you wait
believe you, knowing nothing's resolved. Wavering flowers from out beyond up to your vision. You hold back the love that you've never known. You've only this prison. Straight to right, the wingman's news. Are we born this way? Running down a fistful of sorrows you wanna say. I know you. The fear I love you. I know you well. I love you, love you.
That was Emma Ruth Rundle right here on Livewire performing her song Blooms of Oblivion from her 2021 album Engine of Hell. And that, my friends, is going to do it for this week's episode of Livewire. A huge thanks to our guests, Scaachi Koul and Emma Ruth Rundle.
Laura Haddon is our executive producer, Heather D. Michelle is our executive director, and our producer and editor is Melanie Sevchenko. Our technical director is Eben Hoffer, Hazik bin Ahmad Farid is our assistant editor, and our house sound is by D. Neil Blake. Ashley Park is our production fellow.
Valentine Keck is our operations manager. Andrea Castro Martinez is our marketing associate, and Ezra Veenstra runs our front of house. Our house band is Sam Pinkerton, Ethan Fox Tucker, A.L. Alves, and A. Walker Spring, who also composes our music. This week's episode was mixed by Eben Hoffer and Hazik bin Ahmad Farid.
Additional funding provided by the James F. and Marion L. Miller Foundation. Livewire was created by Robin Tenenbaum and Kate Sokoloff. This week, we'd like to thank member Justin Olson of North Plains, Oregon.
For more information about our show or how you can tune into our podcast at your leisure, visit livewireradio.org. I'm Luke Burbank for Elena Passarello and the whole Livewire crew. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.